I was intending on recording this video earlier with the last court decisions that came out, but nonetheless, here we are. So we just recently got the decision that the Supreme Court of the United States struck down Louisiana state laws, state of Louisiana laws, that was going to put restrictions on abortion clinics, requiring these abortion clinics to have the same types of, admission privileges for professionals as emergency rooms, hospitals, ERs, and things like that, making it more difficult to operate an abortion clinic because the people working there would have to have higher level of credentials. Now, I want to address this whole strategy and even the fear-mongering that's going behind it with the left on Republicans stacking the court. I'm not too sure, just with the way the American federal system works and the current landscape and moving forward, I don't know if this strategy on behalf of Republicans, so-called conservatives, so-called evangelicals, I don't know if this strategy is really going to work. It almost seems like a Hail Mary and a last desperation. Okay, so number one, yes, at the lower federal levels, right now, Trump has been able to put about 200 some odd judges in place. There was a lot of vacancies in place. I think there's an additional almost 200 something vacancies even at or remaining at lower levels. But when it comes to the advise and the consent clause of the Constitution, when it comes to the confirmation process, the Senate, and pending a vice president as a tie-breaking vote, still have to sign off on that for confirmation. So elections will still matter, the Senate still matters, the Judiciary Committee in the Senate still matters, and in the case of a tiebreaker, a vice president matters as far as being on a presidential ticket, so the elections still matter. Also, when it comes to the nominations, a president is the one who nominates these individuals. So you could stack the court with however many conservative or Heritage Foundation judges you want to, but a president will still be able to cherry pick who they want to pick as a nominee. So therefore, elections still matter. Elections have consequences. The Judiciary Committee goes back to elections. The Senate goes back to elections. And the selection process, or vice president as the tiebreaker, presiding over the Senate, if necessary, still goes back to elections. So there's a lot of variables here that still are at play when it comes to getting these judges on the Supreme Court. And you look at this situation now, allegedly, it's supposed to be more of a conservative-leaning, Republican-leaning court. Well, a lot of your so-called conservatives, including Neil Gorsuch, Trump's guy, and John Roberts, who was another one of these Heritage Foundation constitutional conservative selections, appointed and confirmed in the time of George Walker Bush, these guys have voted against the way that you think that the so-called conservatives and the so-called evangelicals would want to vote. And that's also happened in the past. Just because a organization or president or a party selects a judge, when that judge gets on the bench and when they actually start to vote and give opinions, they don't necessarily vote the way that you want to. And is this not what we want? Do we not want judicial independence? Do we not want judiciary independence? So it's not always going to go the way you want to go. And this gentleman you see here on the left middle part of the screen, Brett Kavanaugh, I never really believed that he was ever really a conservative. Who he clerked under, Justice Kennedy, I truly think that Brett Kavanaugh is a moderate, but everybody liked it because, it was 45. So let's see if he goes rogue like John Roberts has, and even recently how Neil Gorsuch has. Let's look at some of the recent decisions. Okay, so the Byron Allen case against Comcast, the court went against that, all right? And even some of the so-called liberal judges did not go in the favor of Byron Allen with the but-for clause of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Okay, now these are supposed to be liberal, left-leaning, Democrat-nominated, progressive judges, and they went against what would be considered as progressive. So this is not a good decision for ADOS. It's not a good decision for black people. It's an anti-black, anti-ADOS decision. Okay, John Roberts and if I'm not mistaken, even Neil Gorsuch upheld DACA. Okay, I believe DACA is unconstitutional. Now I disagree with 45. His strategy. I mean, what was done by executive order could be rescinded by executive order, but I think the administration is just being chicken. You know what? They don't want to knock it out outright and do what Obama did in reverse. They want the court to deem it as unconstitutional and give them the victory. And they have the power to not enforce DACA or just go ahead with deportations if they really wanted to. So if that shows you the lack of resolve and commitment that they really have on this issue, even with what they say in front of their base. So this same court, the same court that went against Byron Allen, upheld DACA. Okay, and now with this abortion circumstance with the state of Louisiana, John Roberts again went rogue. Federalist Society, John Roberts, George W. Bush, Republican John Roberts, upheld abortion as far as preventing these limitations. Okay, so we've seen Gorsuch go the other way. Kavanaugh, I have suspicions about, and John Roberts has definitely shown that he can be independent, even though he was put in place by George W. Bush. So this, I'm going to call it Hail Mary attempt for Republicans of stacking the court. I don't know if it's really just going to work. I don't know if it's really going to make that much of a difference at the end of the day. It may impact some of the things or some of the decisions in lower level courts, but because of Marbury versus Madison, we already have the precedence of judicial review. So the Supreme Court, if they choose, they could take up any issue that they would like under the precedence of judicial review and Marbury versus Madison. Okay, and that's more than a 200-year-old precedence. So I just don't know if this is really going to work for Republicans. Check out the other video that I made talking about California and the Ninth Circuit on the West Coast, and how basically California is like in the West Coast and the Ninth Circuit is basically like your second capital, because with legislation that California is putting in place that's making an impact nationally, and decisions that the Ninth Circuit ends up making that basically forces the Supreme Court, the highest federal court in the land, to have to take up these matters, and how certain cases are intentionally placed in the Ninth Circuit to get at least that initial decision that you would like. That in itself, by how things have gone, will move the country more to the left and more in a progressive direction. And things that pertain to ADOS, things that pertain to black men, straight heterosexual black men, progressive decisions that would be in our favor, then this is something that we can employ as far as our political strategy and judicial strategy. And elections do have consequences, but you see, even with a Republican president, even with the Republican Senate wanting to stack the court, they can't really get everything that they want. And after that, when it comes to bringing these judges up to the highest level, there's too many variables in place as far as the Senate, the Judiciary Committee, and a presidential election to determine who's going to put these judges in place. So let me know what you think about this. Put out any suggestions or strategy down in the comment section. Let's get a dialogue going. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And I'll see you with the next video.